And?
Yes, that is your hand. Very good.
It appears that 2021 might just be a good year for comic book movies after all. Because between Marvel and DC Comics, we have a lot to look forward to now that the pandemic seems to be headed towards its conclusion. The Snyder Cut has already released to great success, and Marvel has announced some new release dates for Black Widow and Shang-Chi. But if you're looking for something a bit different, then you need to be ready for August, because in August comes James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, a movie that just had its first trailer released with a lot of content to dissect. Allow us to show you 9 things you missed in the Suicide Squad trailer. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. 9. A Tale of Two Squads? So let's take a look at something that many have noticed and have questions about. If you recall the first Suicide Squad movie, done by David Ayer, it focused very much on one group and followed them throughout the movie. But something that this movie makes clear almost from the get-go is that there are going to be 2 main Suicide Squad groups that we're going to follow. The first one is the larger group that has some really deep cuts of DC Comics lore, like with Mongol, Weasel, Savant, Javelin, and so on. Then there's the smaller group that has Bloodsport, Ratcatcher, Polka Dot Man, King Shark, Peacemaker, The Thinker, and eventually Harley Quinn. So that begs the question, what happened to the first squad? Well, as the posters and early teases about the movie warned, don't get attached. After all, the entire point of the Suicide Squad was that this is a group of characters who were expendable, and thus could be used for the dirty missions the government does not want to make public. So if they die, they can just go and get new bad guys to fill up slots. And that appears to be what happens here. This is further cemented by the first TV spot for the film, where we see 2 members of the first squad in Savant and Mongol screaming as if they were about to die. Not to mention, Harley Quinn has Javelin throughout much of the trailer. Why would she have it if he's alive? So yeah, don't get too attached.
Do it.
That's patronizing.
I'm so sorry.
8. King Shark. There are a few fan-favorite villains in the Suicide Squad, both versions, but easily one of the most beloved is that of King Shark. A character that has been made famous by many, not the least of which is legendary comic writer and potential bear Gail Simone, and has even been seen in live action before via the Flash TV series. However, here we get a little different version, as he's a bit more childlike, mainly in how he talks and interacts with people. Easily the biggest surprise, though, is that he's going to be voiced by Sylvester Stallone. Yeah, we knew he was going to be in the movie, we just didn't know who he would play specifically. Now that we know, and fans are already loving his take on the character, and it's gonna get even better from here.
And?
Yes, that is your hand.
Oh, and apparently King Shark wears a giant pair of boxer shorts. Because why not when you're a shark? One more thing, if you're curious why James Gunn used the great white version of King Shark and not the equally used Hammerhead, it's because the elongated head and eyes made it harder for certain scenes to be acted out and express certain things from King Shark. 7. John Ostrander. We already mentioned one comic writer who has had an influence on the Suicide Squad, so how about another? John Ostrander is the man who's most associated with the series. He didn't create the group, but he did help revive it and turn it into a major thing in DC Comics for a long time. It's true that it was the movie and New 52 era comic that helped make the group even more mainstream, but if it wasn't for John Ostrander, they wouldn't have gotten that far. The reason we bring him up is not just the movies being made, the second to feature the group he made famous, but rather, when the trailer goes on, we see a male doctor injecting Savant, played by Michael Rooker, with the explosive device in his head. The cameo is very much intentional, as James Gunn noted in a tweet. Who else should go and put the device in their heads? Exactly. 6. The Thinker's role. The Thinker, played by former Doctor Who Peter Capaldi, only had a few quick shots in the trailer, but his role might be more important than you realize. In the comics, the Thinker is a man who values intelligence to an infinite degree and uses a thinking cap to go and further increase his intelligence to a degree beyond what most can comprehend. He's been a thorn in Flash's side for some time and was the main villain of Season 4 of the Flash TV series. Anyway, in the trailer we see Bloodsport note that if the Thinker gives him bad intel, he'll die. But what intel exactly? What do they need him to get? It's very possible that they need for him to get something incredibly important for the mission. And in the TV spot, we see that it's him who says that the mission is suicide, quote unquote. So even he is worried about what might be coming, and that's saying something.
Analyze license plates. You die.
5. Peacemaker. Now let's talk about potentially the MVP of both the trailer and the movie, Peacemaker. When John Cena was cast in the role, no one knew what to expect. John Cena is, of course, the famous WWE wrestler who followed The Rock's path of going into Hollywood. And while he hasn't had the success of The Rock, he's been making his own path. But it might just be the Peacemaker role that catapults him to stardom because he's killing the role based on what we've seen so far. He's basically Captain America, but with no regard for anything other than completing the mission and protecting America. His deadpan delivery about eating a bag of, well, you know, was perfect. And if that's what we can expect going forward, it's gonna be great. Also, James Gunn was apparently so enthralled by what John Cena did in the role that he used the early days of the quarantine in 2020 to go and write a Peacemaker TV series that'll debut on HBO Max. So yeah, he must be doing something right.
I cherish peace with all my heart.
4. Bloodsport and Ratcatcher connection. This was literally a blink and you'll miss it moment, but in the trailer we see a small scene between Bloodsport, played by Idris Elba, and Ratcatcher. He notes that they were going to get you out of here alive, and she repeated the line back to him as if it was her going to save him. The reason we bring this up is that if you look at the outfits they're wearing, Bloodsport appears to be in a military uniform and Ratcatcher is in a regular dress. So perhaps they knew each other before they were on the squad? Or this could be a shot of them in the later parts of the movie where they're trying to disguise their way out? Hard to say, but it's clear that something was between them for Bloodsport to try and give comfort to her.
I'm here alive.
I'm going to get you out of here alive.
3. Amanda Waller in trouble again. If you recall the original Suicide Squad movie, the original premise was that the squad was brought together for a singular purpose: save Amanda Waller. They didn't know that was the goal at the time, but it's how the movie went down. In the trailer, another blink and you'll miss it moment was that someone went and pulled a shiv on Waller. Was this one of the squad members? If so, who? And how will it play out? Curious things ahead. 2. Starro. Many wondered who would be the main villain of the Suicide Squad. The first movie had the Enchantress, but James Gunn didn't note who was going to be the villain or what the goal was for the squad in this movie. As the movie trailer revealed, it's Starro. Oh, you don't know Starro? Starro the Conqueror is an alien with the ability to control anyone with its mind via its offspring or spores. Yes, it's a giant starfish, but it's one of the deadliest villains in all of DC Comics. Starro can reproduce like mad and use its offspring to enslave planets. And it's done so in the past, so for the Suicide Squad to go up against him, it's quite a task. Or, as Bloodsport put it,
Looting all over us.
1. Harley being Harley. We'd be fools not to mention Harley Quinn. She was finally brought to live action in a meaningful way via the original Suicide Squad film by Margot Robbie, who was so popular in that film that she got her own spin-off film of sorts via Birds of Prey. And canonically, this film takes place after Birds of Prey, so it'll be curious to see how they handle her going from Birds of Prey to Suicide Squad once again. She also has a few different outfits in this version, including a very comics-esque jumpsuit and a bright red dress. And as Harley shows in the trailer, she hasn't lost her wit or charm. She'll be fun to watch as usual. So what do you think? What do you think about this look at the Suicide Squad and its first trailer? Were you surprised by how much detail there was put into it? Did you learn something about the trailer that you didn't know when you watched it the first time? Are you looking forward to the movie coming out? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.